You've seen it before, but you swallowed it. A gentle blink, a trembling voice. The slow collapse of her shoulders as if the world had broken her wings, but something in you recoiled. Not from her pain, but from the perfection of it. Like a rehearsed fall in a play whose script you never received. You didn't say anything. You pitied her, and so you obeyed. There is a silence in your past. Isn't there a moment you backed away, not because you were wrong, but because her tears came too quickly? You can't recall what she said, only how you felt as if the air had turned against you, guilt that had no shape, shame with no crime. Now you hesitate before you speak, doubting your own anger, unsure if it's real or if it makes you dangerous. But the truth is simpler. You were outplayed, and you still are. She's not the victim. She's the architect of her fragility, and you were the scaffolding, still are. They will call this cruelty, but I only offer a mirror. You may look away, or you may stare. The mask is still wet. It hasn't dried. Not yet. She does not scream to survive. She whispers. The louder you become, the quieter she falls, folding into herself like damp linen around a secret. And in that stillness, she wins, not through force, but through subtraction, through absence, through the absence that makes you feel monstrous, simply for filling the space she emptied. You see her looking down and think it's shame, but it is calculation. She is not yielding, she is watching, and she is counting how many steps it takes for you to break yourself against her silence. You mistake softness for surrender, but softness is not weakness. Softness is strategy. You think she is the hunted, but it is her stillness that draws out your movement, her trembling that invites your roar. And once you rise, once you defend, once you demand your justice, she has already taken it from you, because now you are the one who must explain. She never needed to be right, only innocent. You, with your reason, your logic, your language, none of it works here, because language dies in the presence of performance. And she is performing the holy script of the wounded, the child, the forsaken daughter, the betrayed lover, all of it staged without lines, because she does not need words to rule. She needs only pause, a tremor, a half-second delay before the tears. Not enough to appear fake, just enough to feel practiced. And you will doubt yourself. You always do. Because power that pretends to be powerless is the most convincing kind. The dictator who weeps, the queen who faints, the executioner who flinches as she cuts. She wears your empathy as armor, knowing you will hesitate to strike anything that bleeds. You were taught to protect what is fragile. But no one told you that fragility can be sharpened. No one warned you that mercy could be extracted from you like a confession, just by the tilt of a head. She does not need to raise her voice to win. She needs only to appear breakable, because men fear two things most: becoming the villain and being unloved. She promises you both if you resist. This is not about her. It never was. She is the vessel through which your illusions leak. You believed that innocence is real, and she sold it back to you with interest. You believed that pain was proof of truth, and she buried the knife in tears so you would never question the wound. She does not need to lie outright. She lets your imagination do the work. You will invent her purity just to have something worth sacrificing for. And sacrifice you will. Your pride, your certainty, your voice, until the only way to be good is to disappear. Until you are no longer a man, but a ghost she permits barely to haunt her with guilt. You will wake up each morning rehearsing your apology and fall asleep wondering what crime you committed. This is how innocence enslaves, not by chains, but by mirrors. She reflects only your fury, never hers. You think you chose her. You did not. She lured you with your own shadow. She sensed your hunger to protect, and she made herself prey. She traced the outline of your nobility and hollowed herself to fit it. You mistook the echo for a soul, but watch her eyes when she's not looking at you. Watch how quickly the softness hardens when no one's watching. Watch the way she studies the reactions of others like a composer listening to the first breath of an orchestra. There is no improvisation in her despair. It is a choreography of helplessness. You were just chosen for the lead role. You think this is bitterness? No, this is clarity. You've seen the shape of the mask, but you still believe the face beneath must be real. What if there is no face? What if the mask is the face? What if the innocence you loved was never hiding anything because it was built to be hollow? Still, you want to believe, because men do not fall in love with women. They fall in love with their own illusion of the woman. And when that illusion suffers, they bleed. But you are not bleeding for her. You are bleeding for the version of you that got to feel strong by saving someone. She let you save her until you were too weak to leave. Then she saved herself and called your withdrawal abandonment. There is a silence that follows a performance. You know it. That aching, unreal air where applause would feel obscene. That's the moment she smiles. Not to you, never to you, but inward, to the part of her that has won again. You do not see the victory, because your eyes are still on the stage, still believing, still hoping the curtain might rise again. And she will finally tell you she was acting. She won't, because she wasn't acting. Not exactly. She became what you needed her to be long enough to trap you in the guilt of walking away. And that is her genius. Not deceit, not malice, but metamorphosis. You never saw her become. You only saw the result, the wounded girl clutching your hand with eyes that said, "Don't leave me, it will destroy me." But what destroyed you was staying. And yet, you stayed. You always do. Because you would rather burn for her than admit you've been played. Because you'd rather be wrong and noble than right and alone. Because innocence is the last illusion you cannot bear to kill. But she already killed it. She killed it the first time she looked up at you with trembling lashes and said, "I don't understand. Why are you angry?" You weren't angry. Not then. But you are now. And she knows. She always knew. You've just stopped pretending not to see. You once believed love was a mirror that she saw you, needed you, chose you. But she did not choose you. She chose what you offered, not your presence, but your protection, not your soul, but your submission. You mistook being wanted for being known. But what she wanted was not you. It was what you gave away, trying to deserve her. And she took it with the hands of a priestess, soft and reverent, as though your sacrifice was sacred. But the altar was hers, not yours. The gods she served were hunger and control, dressed in velvet and veils. And you knelt willingly, because you mistook her appetite for affection. You praised her subtlety. You said she had grace. You admired how she never had to raise her voice. But silence can kill more efficiently than sound. She didn't need to command you, she only had to withdraw, slightly, gradually, enough to make you feel her distance. And in that space, your instincts screamed. You rushed forward. You tried harder. You said what she needed before she asked. You offered apologies she hadn't requested. You filled the silence with offerings, and she learned the less she gave, the more you bled. She never needed to hurt you directly. She made you beg to be punished. She let you invent your guilt, your shame, your failure. She let you suspect yourself, because once you doubt your own motives, she no longer needs to accuse you. You will surrender your dignity for absolution. You will confess to crimes you didn't commit. and in your desperation to be pure again, to win back her approval, you will give her more than she ever asked for. That is the knife not in her hand, but in yours. She teaches you to turn it against yourself, and when you do, she recoils, she cries, she mourns, not for your pain, but for her suffering at witnessing it. You become your own tormentor, and she becomes your witness. This is how she keeps her hands clean. You cannot win against what does not speak. You cannot reason with what refuses to be real. And so you spiral, trying to define something that changes every time you approach it. You ask for clarity, and she gives you softness. You ask for honesty, and she gives you hurt. You ask for fairness, and she gives you fear, the fear that if you demand too much, she will vanish, and you believe that her absence is a punishment you deserve. She feeds you fragments, a tear here, a gesture there, a wounded silence, a late-night message full of ellipses. You chase these crumbs like a dog trained to believe the leash is love. You never ask why the crumbs are all you get, because the crumbs are laced with longing, and longing feels like purpose. She lets you ache, she lets you yearn, she lets you rot in the space between her affection and her absence, and all the while she watches not out of malice, but necessity, because your hunger is her proof of power. And when you break, truly break, she returns, momentarily, just long enough to rebuild the illusion. She touches your face. She says she understands. She says it's just been hard, that she's trying, that she didn't mean to make you feel this way, but she never apologizes. Not for the confusion, not for the withdrawal, not for the manipulation, because if she apologizes, the game ends, and the game is her sanctuary. It is how she survives, not by dominance, but by distortion. You think you are protecting her. You are not. You are preserving the script. You are keeping the mask intact because you fear what will be revealed beneath it. Not a monster. No, something worse, a void. A woman who does not feel the love she performs. A woman who cannot give what she mimics. A woman whose tenderness is a weapon of survival, not of soul. And still, you return, because the pain she causes feels familiar, feels deserved, feels like home. Because she flatters your instincts, the part of you that longs to be useful, noble, chosen. She gives you the illusion of purpose. You believe you are her protector, but what you protect is your own belief in her goodness. You are the one who shields the lie, because the truth would kill something you cannot name, something in you that still believes in rescue. And that is her final seduction. She makes you believe you are rescuing her, but she does not want to be saved. She wants to be served. She wants your patience, not your insight. She wants your endurance, not your understanding. She wants your silence, not your truth. And you give it, all of it, because you think love means losing yourself. You think devotion means dissolving. You think sacrifice makes you real. But she is not moved by sacrifice. She is nourished by it. And once you are empty, she will find another. Another heart to test. Another man to wound just enough that he begs to stay. Do you understand now? Her innocence is not a lie. It is an illusion of movement, a dance performed at the edge of your doubt. She cannot show her power directly, because her power is parasitic. It requires your strength to survive. And so she drains you with softness. She tames you with praise. She breaks you by needing you. But it is not need. It is design. She does not love you. She loves the echo of herself in your obedience. And you love the lie, because it makes you feel noble. But nobility means nothing if it is offered to a God that does not exist. And you've built a temple to a ghost. You light candles for a phantom. You kneel at an altar that devours without blessing. And still you call it love, because the alternative is too sharp, too final, too true. She tells the story differently now. The garden you built with your bare hands, she says it was a prison. The water you fetched, the shade you offered, the quiet corners you made sacred with your restraint, all of it, she says, was control. She walks among the memories with a lantern, casting shadows where once you gave light. And she does not lie. That is her gift. She simply rearranges the truth until it forgets what it was. You left her in silence not because you stopped caring, but because words no longer mattered. Every explanation was twisted. Every truth you tried to speak became evidence of your cruelty. So, you said nothing. You folded yourself inward and walked away with your hands unraised, but silence, to her, was violence. Absence was abuse. She did not want your peace. She wanted your submission, and in your refusal, she found her final script, the victim of your vanishing. You were not erased, you were rewritten. Now she tells others that you never understood her, that you were cold, distant, that you demanded too much, that she gave you everything and you threw it away. And they nod. They believe, because she speaks softly, and broken things are easy to love when they wear mascara. She weeps without water. She shivers in rooms that are warm. She carries her wounds like jewelry, visible, glinting, hollow, and they admire her strength for surviving a story you were never invited to tell. You thought truth would defend itself, but truth, without a stage, is useless. She has the audience now. You are only the ghost in her monologue, the one who left, the one who couldn't love her enough, the one who raised his voice once in 10 years, and that was the only note she kept. But you remember how she asked you to stay, even as she disappeared inside herself. You remember how she clung to you with her absence, how she punished you with need, how she starved you just long enough to keep you loyal, and fed you only when you begged. You remember the feeling of guilt that came before the mistake, as if she had prophesied your failure and then sculpted it into being with her silence. You remember what it cost to protect her from the truth. You bent your spine into apologies. You bit your tongue until it bled. You rewrote your own memory just to match hers, because disagreeing with her pain made you feel violent. And still, it was never enough. Her suffering expanded to fill every corner. Her sadness became law. There was a time you believed in her suffering, not because you saw it, but because she made it seem beautiful. That was her seduction. She turned pain into a performance, and you mistook the spotlight for a wound. You did not love her. You loved the shape she made when she folded. You loved how much you were needed, and that need made you blind. You were not protecting her. You were protecting the version of yourself that felt noble in her arms, the version that could still believe in sacrifice, the version that didn't yet know that being chosen can be a curse when the chooser needs a victim more than a partner. She needed your silence because your truth was too loud, too clear, too final. She needed you confused, unsure, always slightly off balance, because certainty is the death of manipulation. And so she gave you doubt like a gift. She made you feel cruel for asking questions. She made you feel selfish for wanting peace. She made you feel dangerous for raising your voice in defense of yourself. And you, like a fool, believed that love meant surrender. You were wrong. Love does not require self-erasure. Love does not fear clarity. Love does not collapse when confronted. But she did. Every time you came close to naming the thing, she collapsed into tears, into silence, into illness, into someone else's arms. And so you stopped naming it. You stopped asking. You stopped thinking. You began to disappear. She says you abandoned her, but you know better. You were gone long before you left. And she knew. She watched the light go out in your eyes. And for a while, she tried to reignite it not with love, but with withdrawal, with danger, with just enough pain to keep you reaching. Because she doesn't love intimacy, she loves leverage. She doesn't want your truth, she wants your confusion. She doesn't want a partner, she wants a witness to her victimhood. And when you finally broke, truly broke, when you said no more, when you laid the mask at her feet and asked her to tell the truth or stay silent forever, she chose silence, and then told the world you abandoned her. This is how it ends, not with screams, not with fire, but with a rewrite. You will walk away, and they will call you heartless. They will say she loved you too much, that you were the cold one, that you should have stayed, and she will never say a word to correct them, because the silence that once destroyed you is now her revenge. You wanted truth, she wanted belief, and belief is easier to sell than truth, especially when the audience is afraid of what's real. You could expose her, yes. You could bring the texts, the timelines, the fractures in her fables, but that would make you the aggressor. That would make you the monster. Because she does not fight with fists, she fights with wounds, and wounds always win in public. So you keep quiet, not because you are weak, but because you have finally found your dignity in the absence of applause. You no longer need to be believed. You no longer need to be loved for your pain. You no longer need her eyes to confirm your goodness. You are done being a mirror for her hunger, and that, to her, is unforgivable. Because she cannot control what she cannot confuse. She cannot cage what does not crave her. She cannot punish what refuses to kneel. And so she will find another, and you will vanish from the story. But some nights in the quiet between her performances she will remember you, not as the villain, not as the coward, but as the one who saw, the one who knew, the one who left without begging. And that memory will haunt her more than any revenge you could ever take, because she cannot rewrite what was never spoken. And the silence you gave her in the end was not a weapon, it was a mirror, and she cannot look into it. There is no grave for illusions. They do not rot, they drift. Yours still lingers in the corners of rooms where she once wept, in the breath before someone says your name with a question mark, in the pause between stories retold without you. You are gone, but your silence remains, and silence, once born, does not die. It waits, like a blade no longer in use, but still sharp, like a letter unopened at the back of a drawer. You thought the garden was love, it was theatre. You thought she was fragile, she was rehearsed. You thought you were her anchor, you were her audience. Now walk away, not with rage, not with righteousness, but with the quiet understanding that some lies are too beloved to destroy. Let the veil remain on the stage. You have no more roles to play, no more lines to speak, and still, the curtain does not fall.